Hi, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Christine Mills. Today I want to demonstrate for you a great recipe called profiteroles. Now, you might never have had a profiterole, or you might have heard the word and thought, oh, that sounds fancy. But what a profiterole is really is it's a cream puff. Instead of putting in the traditional pastry style cream inside, we fill it with ice cream and serve it as a lovely frozen dessert. I'm going to fill ours today with some delicious premium style ice cream and serve it with a little bit of Hershey's syrup. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and show you what we need. To start off, you're going to need a half a cup of water, 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I'm going to use a pinch of kosher salt. And then I have a half a cup of all-purpose flour and 2 whole eggs. Now the eggs have been sitting out to room temperature, but it's not absolutely vital that you do this, really simply because of the way we're going to add it, and you're going to see in a minute. I'm going to start off, I have a small skillet here. Now you could use a small pot as well, like a 1-quart saucepan would work ideally, but I wanted to show a shallow pan so that viewers could get a better idea of what's going to be happening here. I want to add my half a cup of water, the 4 tablespoons of butter, and you'll notice that I didn't just use, the 4 tablespoons, which is really half a stick, just left solid piece. I cut it into 4 small portions, and the reason why is we're working with only a half a cup of water, and the longer it simmers, the more will evaporate. So I want to let this butter melt down as quickly as possible. So to that, I'm going to add our 4 tablespoons of butter. Oops, pardon me. And then a pinch of kosher salt. Now people say, well, what's a pinch? A pinch is when you pinch some ingredient between your pointer and your thumb. That's a pinch, okay? All right, I'm gonna set this on medium-high heat and bring it to a simmer. That should take just a few moments. All right, so all of our ingredients have come to a rolling boil, and the unsalted butter has been melted down. I'm going to immediately add my half a cup of flour. Now be mindful, it's going to instantly lock up. If you've ever cooked anything with liquid, hot liquid, and dry flour, you're going to know that it's going to thicken up super quick. You want to stir it in. It's important that you get all of the flour lumps liquefied. So it's going to turn into a paste. And what you're really looking for here is that you can't see any more lumps of flour. It's all evenly incorporated, and then as you work with it, it's going to begin to sort of build up a little bit of a film on the bottom of the pan. So right now you can still see a little bit of flour. I'm kind of mashing it together. Now I'm using a silicone spatula. These are heat safe up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. If you don't have one of these, a wooden spoon is another ideal cooking utensil to prepare this. So you can see I'm just kind of folding it over and smashing it down and getting all of those flour bits incorporated. You don't want to see any more chunks of flour, right? And of course, we are beginning to see that film build up in the bottom of the pan. So that's important too. That is showing us that we are getting a nice dry paste to this. All right, that's ready, okay? Now at this point, I want to add eggs to it. But you can't just add an egg right into this hot pan, because guess what's going to happen? It's going to cook. I don't want the eggs to cook in with my paste at this point. I want the eggs to cook in the oven when I bake them. All right, I'm going to set this aside for about 8 minutes to allow it to cool. If you haven't yet preheated your oven, at this time you want to turn your oven onto 375 degrees Fahrenheit with a convection setting. So I've allowed the paste part of my recipe to cool for about 8 to 10 minutes, just so that it's come down more closer to room temperature, because again, you don't want to cook these eggs before they cook in the oven. This recipe doesn't have any kind of chemical or biological leavener in it, so it doesn't have baking powder, baking soda, yeast. So there's nothing to cause it to rise except for the steam that's going to come from the eggs. So it's going to work on it like the way a souffle comes up. These are a type of pâte à choux, so that French word for eclair paste or cream puffs. It's just that we're making it into a large cream puff size, and we're gonna fill it with ice cream. So it's just a different variation. So it's really important that I not cook those eggs. So I have 2 eggs here, and I've pulled off my mix. I'm gonna add them in one at a time, and I'm gonna use a whisk to do this. Again, a wooden spoon will be fine if you don't have a whisk at home in your kitchen. It's just that I find that it's just quicker this way. Doing the eggs one at a time into the mix helps you to more evenly incorporate it and saves you a little elbow grease. I'm gonna go in with my second egg. Getting a little bit hung up. Use my rubber scraper. Those bold yolks are also giving it a really nice color that will come out in the pastry as it cooks. All right. Let me get everything off there. And you're gonna say to yourself, well, boy, maybe that doesn't look right. It's awful thick. Well, you're going to expect it to be awful thick, right? It's going to be almost like a glue. It's so sticky, this type of paste, all right? Now this is gonna make 4 large profiteroles. That being said, if you're a family of 5 and you need to have dessert for 1 more person, make 5 out of it. They're just gonna be a little bit smaller, or maybe make 6, or even make smaller ones and do a variety. I'm gonna do a single variety of ice cream in the large profiterole, but you could do, say, 2 or 3 small ones and do different flavors of ice cream. I'm going to use a baking pan, and I'm going to line it with just 1 small piece of parchment paper. Now, if you don't have parchment paper at your house, don't worry about it. You can simply just spray the pan with pan release. Use Crisco or butter or Pam spray, whatever you happen to have on hand, just enough so that they're not going to stick. And I'm going to simply divide this batter into 4, and I'm just going to do it by eye. So just put the dollops on. Be patient with it. It's sticky. It's a sticky substance when it's done. So it is a little trickier to work with, but it is expected to be that way. And also, don't expect them to be perfectly round. This recipe, because it's dropped on, you're gonna find that they're a little bit more rustic in nature, but I think that lends to the charm of this particular dessert, right? And you may not get them exactly perfect, which may only be a problem if you have small children that are saying, well, how come so-and-so got a bigger one than me? But in most cases, just take your time, slow down, and you should be able to get a reasonable quartet of profiteroles. All right, these are going to go in the oven now for 20 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit with the convection setting on. After the 20 minutes, the oven's going to be reduced down to 325 degrees and baked for a further 25 minutes. And then they'll come out and we'll get to making our dessert. Okay, so it's been 45 minutes. Remember that first I baked the profiteroles out for 20 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit on convection, and then reduced the oven temperature down to 325 degrees for another 25 minutes. My buzzer's gone off. It's time for me to take out my profiteroles. There they are. You can see they've gotten nice and light and airy. All right, I'm gonna let these cool completely to room temperature before I fill them. So it's been a couple hours and I just left my profiteroles sit out and come to room temperature. And now it's time for dessert. Now this is one of those things you could do in advance. You could get your profiteroles filled with the ice cream and have them ready in the freezer so that if you're having guests for dinner, you want to just quick pop them on dessert plates and garnish and serve them. Or you can do it as to order. This is a great thing, part of it to do with your little ones. If you have kids at home, everybody can kind of build their own. And they're intended to be eaten with a knife and fork on a dessert plate, but they almost become like an ice cream sandwich for you. You're gonna see why. So I have one of the profiteroles, and I'm gonna use a serrated knife and cut it in two, just like I would if it was a hamburger bun. Just be mindful of the blade. All right, You can see inside it's got a bit of a cavity to it now. So I'm going to lay bottom side down, and I'm going to fill it. I have one of my favorite ice cream brands, Tillamook, and I got the white chocolate raspberry this time to try. So let's do a nice big scoop of ice cream. You know what I always say, don't be stingy. Nice big scoop. Pop it on top. And you can go in for a double dip if you like. I'm gonna go with a single scoop myself. All right, simply top it again with the other top of the pastry. All right, and I just have Hershey's syrup, and all I'm gonna do is garnish it. So it's not terribly elegant in the sense that I'm going to place everything just so. It's going to be a little bit more rustic and charming. So I'm just going to drizzle chocolate syrup over it. Just make it fun, make it easy. I have a few raspberries to put out here to garnish. Just enjoy it. All right. So there we are. Ice cream profiteroles.